Well, welcome back, everyone, to our weekly WeAwake meditation, which has been just a wonderful addition to what we do here at iAwake, and to meditate with all of you and come together as a team and meditate together. It's been really extraordinary, and we're finding that when we connect, even on the internet, whether it's in prayer, meditation, doing the work that we do, really wonderful things happen. And we just finished an online Vision Quest experience last week. And I don't know, there were 50, 60 people there, something like that. And, you know, I've had a lot of experience Vision Questing on my own, going out in the wilderness and prayer fasts. And I've had Native American teachers and designed a wilderness program for people struggling with alcoholism and addiction, who's culminated time in the wilderness with a Vision Quest experience. And then I put a lot of other people out individually who just came to me because they heard, you know, I was into these sort of things. And then with the discovery of this technology, I began to use a lot of the same motivations and the same sort of prayers, but empowered with this technology that takes us into these very deep brainwave states that I believe is the reason that we do vision quests and isolation and fasting and all of that, in order to get us into these brainwaves, into these states of consciousness where we're receptive to spirit, where we can listen to the wisdom that's there, that we can see into the world of the spirit, see into the ancestral world of very real world of angels and power animals and visions and dreams and all that resting on the pure consciousness and pure awareness and pure emptiness, or fullness, if you will, that is God. So anyway, so we did this thing, and as in most things, I just do it because I think I'm supposed to. And it turned out it was truly remarkable. We would come together and we do talks, and then we were using the iAwake track Vision Quest 1 and 2. That's an hour worth of stuff. They're very powerful. And we had a workbook, and then we'd come back. And what was really interesting, because a traditional Vision Quest it's a very individual kind of experience. You're out there by yourself. You have, you know, your medicine person that puts you out there and stays back and prays for you and helps process it after it's done. But it's generally, you know, you, God, and anybody else who wants to show up during that experience. This turned into something where we were really sharing our experiences. And one of the things we say about a Vision Quest, once you decide to go on the Vision Quest, the Vision Quest is already begun. And everything that's happening in your normal waking consciousness should be treated as a dream, as symbolic, something powerful messages coming through. And that's certainly what happened. And people began to share things that were going up and happening to them, and in their dreams, and in their just different things that were showing up, animals and different synchronistic events. And it turned into a very, very powerful gathered experience. Gathered, I use that in the Quaker sense, where you really feel that there's a presence and a power. And I was certainly left with a recognition of that I'm a confirmation that I'm on the path doing the work that I'm supposed to be doing, and the power of sharing this technology in that way, in one foot into the ancestral wisdom of the wilderness and those who came before us, and the other foot squarely in the 21st century, where we're learning to use technology to heal our minds and our hearts and our bodies. So that was very powerful. The other thing I wanted to share is my dog Lucy, who was with us, Pam and I, for close to at least 12 years. And she was just constant companion. You know, she slept in our bed, just with us. You know, it's a marvelous, marvelous beast. And she taught me so much about love and so much about capacity to love and give myself fully. And anyway, she was old, she was in dog years. She was over 100 and she got cancer, and we kept her with us. She was getting worse, but finally when it was time to put her down, it was time. And we had friends there and we did it with her. We were there just loving her and praying with her during this whole experience. And so I come to you with a really broken heart and deep, deep mourning. And for those of you, and it's like nobody gets out of this without this, so I'm not putting myself on a pedestal. I'm just here having a very human experience. But the more that we dare to love, the more the loss is going to hurt. And I gave myself completely to this dog. And, I told you when I had the heart attack back a couple of years ago, whenever that was, my first thought was to get back to the hotel. So make sure that Lucy wasn't abandoned. I didn't think about my heart. I thought about my dog. So it was that kind of, connection and that capacity for that kind of deep love that she just awoke in me. And that makes me feel really good, because God knows we need that kind of love right now to get through what we're going through right now. And we need to have supernatural, divine love, if you will, in a time where the situations is pushing more and more tribalism, more to our little group. In fear, we retreat to people that look like us or think like us or, behave like us. And it's exactly the opposite that we need to be doing. We need to find something as revolutionary as love, and love used with wisdom and skillful and understanding all the developmental things going on the planet and all of its complexity, but to be held together by love. And I wanted to share a little amazing thing. It's a little New Testament, and I've told the story before, but when I was, they gave it to me in school. You see, I have my little childish scrawlings there. It says, has the place where I lived in Houston, and the date is April 2nd, 1967. So they gave me this little thing in school. It said, you have to promise to read a chapter every night. I'm sure, which I didn't, but eventually I did. And I was in my bedroom, and I started reading Sermon on the Mount, chapter 5, Matthew, where Jesus gets up and he starts, getting into the Beatitudes. And I'd been raised Catholic, catechism, all sacraments, that whole thing. And nothing, it wasn't bad. I didn't have a real bad experience, but it certainly didn't do much for me spiritually. So all of a sudden I had this experience of God as a living presence. And it was all about love in a way that I'd never experienced before. What? And my poor parents are like, our little 12-year-old, 11-year-old son has lost his mind. It's probably true. And but anyway, the interesting thing about that is that I don't know what happened to this book, but I reconnected with my best friend during that period. And I think I was in junior high. We used to call middle school, junior high back in the day. And we reconnected, and she's become a very successful doctor in the Dallas area. And so we visited, and we picked up this relationship after many years. It was very rich, I think, healing for both of us. But anyway, said, John, when you left home, I was 14, you left this with me. So it's my little New Testament. That was like the catalyst for my first big spiritual kabang. After 50 years, this cheap little beat up book comes back. And it's got all my little notes and all my scrawls and all this stuff. But let me read you the thing. This is where, I know this sounded very Christian, but anyway, it was a Christian experience. Where the scales fell from my eyes, as Paul said. It says, and seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain. When he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and he taught them, saying, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. So that's the one I've been hanging on to. Yeah, thank you, Jesus. And blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. But blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. So I am just smack dab in the middle of deep grief. And I just want to suggest that in this meditation together, we open our hearts to all those who are suffering, or maybe if we're having a relatively good time, that's okay. You don't have to be suffering, but if you're there, know that it's a very human and a very deep thing. And it's like, in the vision quest, it became very clear that what we are doing is a good thing. And of course, we get all these wonderful letters and testimonials from people. Thank you, you changed my life and all this stuff. Just great stuff. But right now, it just feels empty to me. And I know what I have to do, and it just feels like it's just so empty. And because I'm in such deep grief right now. And I always say when I'm going through this stuff, what would you say to somebody that you were counseling? Okay, what would I say? Well, I would say be present with the grief, bless it, honor it, don't try to fix it, and let it be your teacher. And if you are willing to sit in deep prayer and meditation, especially using this technology, I can really, really heal. Okay. So I just request that perhaps the theme of this meditation is deep grief, and hang on to that promise, to that bit of wisdom that guy way back there said. And he said, blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. And I think in the Gospel of John, Jesus referred to the Spirit of God as the comforter. So underneath our grief, deeper, 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 there's still a place of deep love and deep compassion, deep healing, where all the suffering that happens as being a sentient being, and the more sentient you become, the more conscious, the more capacity you have to suffer even more deeply, the blessing and the curse, right? So I just ask that we all hold that in our hearts. And if we're not there, just hold. You will be eventually, if you hang around enough, and be there for all the brokenhearted people in the world right now, and hold them in this prayer. And we're doing a track called "What Is Time" by our tremendous friend and co-worker and colleague, beautiful, beautiful woman, all four quadrants, Nadia Lynn. And it's called Deeply Theta Joy. And this is the second track, which is called What Is Time? And it's a serious track. It is a very powerful track. It takes us into theta, but I've used this on my journey quite a bit. So that's what we're going to do. So got your headphones, make sure you have your headphones, have your earbuds. Sit up straight like you're a Buddha statue, or you're a queen or a king or a prince or princess of nobility. And be willing to let go of the thoughts that arise. Just keep coming back to your center and go deep. And I'll see you on the other end. God bless you. It's 44 minutes. Well, welcome back, everybody, or welcome here again. And thank you for being with us and participating in that. And hope it was a, hope it was a blessing and a good thing. One of the things that we've been learning that's come through our recent online or virtual Vision Quest experiences, how important it is to ask the right questions. And we were using a medieval story or a poem, a couple of them, but the particular one was by Wolfgang von Aschenbach. And it's the story of Parsifal. And Parsifal's the young fool in the story who's his father's not there. But anyway, he leaves his mother and goes off into the world. He wants to become a knight, or he sees a knight. And he goes, that's what I want to be. So he goes off and begins the adventure to become a knight, whatever that means, right? Inner, outer knight. That's another mysterious question that the story brings up. And anyway, as a young man, just as in my experience, he runs into the Grail Castle, and he has a vision of the Grail Castle and the Grail King and of the Holy Grail itself. And in the story, he doesn't ask the right question. And so the vision goes poof. He's left kind of confused. And anyway, he goes on and tries to find the castle again, and find that vision that he had of that great beauty and great clarity that he really blew, not just being young and foolish. So anyway, the story goes on, and he has many, many adventures and misadventures and all kinds of things. And I'm sure they're all symbolic. This is not just a story, and it's a good story, but it's an initiatory, symbolic, spiritual teaching. And you can just go layer after layer after layer, just like all true scripture is. It's a way of waking us up and pointing us in the direction that we're supposed to go in. And so finally, he finds the castle again, and he finds the wounded Grail King. And I think the question of the king, what aileth thee? Why are you suffering? And then he has a vision of the Grail again, which is this beautiful cup. And I think they carry it out on a platform. And, what is a cup? In some of the Christian versions, it was the cup that they gathered Jesus's blood in from, when he was crucified. Others, it was the cup that he used when he was the Last Supper, the wine and the bread and all of that. And in the older tradition, they say it goes back to a Celtic myth of the Horn of Plenty, the place where all life comes from, the goddess, if you will. And anyway, and this time, bless our poor, no longer a young fool, but I don't know, a guy with a lot of experience, a lot of suffering, and a lot of successes and failures. And this time he does ask the right question. Whom does the Grail serve? Okay. What is this ultimate symbol of life and the mystery of being? Who does that serve? And that's where the manuscript ends. The story doesn't continue. So you just left with, And of course, what you're left with is like, we have to do that journey ourselves, and we have to get to that place where we encounter the Grail, and encounter the mystery of existence in a very real, ecstatic, true sense, not just an intellectual idea. And then we have to ask the right question: whom does the Grail serve? And then the question is, who do I serve? And how do I serve? What is my path? So that I can organize my life and my practices and what I'm doing in my time, so that I'm working towards this thing. And there's a lot of if you guys are into the intellectual dark web, and it's not like the dark web where you I don't know, you buy drugs and pornography and all this stuff. It's not that. It's on the regular web. And there's just these deep conversations with pretty bright people, And instead of just, doing it in sound bites for the news cycle, they actually get into these deep questions, and they explore. Sometimes, conversations last 3 hours, 3.5 hours. So time to really, get beneath all the prepared arguments or thoughts and explore something. And there's a real search for meaning. I call it sense making. What maps, show us the meaning, the purpose of life. Therefore, if we knew that, it would seem that it would be easier to figure out our environmental policies, our political agendas, all of this stuff, if we actually knew what we were doing and what we were here to do, clarifies things. And of course, one of the things they don't talk about too much in these conversations is the interior search, the interior practice. And sometimes, David Dawkins, or you have just the strict materialist and atheist, and everything in between. But, materialism is useful. All right. It's a great lens to look at things. And when you follow the mere matter, and of course you get down to the essence of matter, again, you're left with vast emptiness and the mystery all in your face again. But it will take you there. Materialism will take you to a place where you're just confronted with this incredible mystery of existence. And then you have to make choices. You grab onto materialism as a religious dogma, and go beating that drum, or you can be open to what the mystery as it reveals itself to you, both in a big way and in a personal way. So if you're still struggling with that, well, we have to, in our searches for meaning and purpose and understanding, we have to include the interior dimension, or it gets really out of balance and ultimately it's not satisfying. So if you're still having questions of that nature, I could just suggest something I did, and is get a heroic dose of magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, and go sit under a giant sequoia or in a canyon rim at night in the moonlight, and say your prayers, buckle your seatbelt, and say, okay, spirit, really need to know this. This is just a material universe, and it's just random reaction of chemicals and lightning in a pond or next to a geyser, and it heated up and created little chemicals that created amino acids, which created proteins, which created unicellular organisms, and all this stuff, just out of pure chance, right? Or is there something behind it? I think if you do survive that evening, I'm pretty sure that the materialist argument will seem pretty silly and facile. Because when you go into the domain of the gods, it's like it's not just reality; it's hyper reality. It's more real than this reality that we're sharing here right now. Then, of course, not only do you have to, have that experience, but then you have to cultivate and deepen that experience, and that's what we do in our daily practice. Okay, just keep going deep, and stabilizing the wisdom that we're learning, and learn how to give it out to the world in a good, wise, and viable way. And God knows, and I know that we need a lot of ourselves right now, because we're just in challenging times, right? Both in the physical domain with this pandemic, and the interior domain, who we are as human beings. How do we react to that? Do we politicize it and make it something crazy, or do we pull ourselves together and have compassion and do the right thing so that we can learn that we're all necessary and all part of this great grail quest that is the purpose and the meaning of human life? So I could go on, but I think I'll spare everybody. Anyway, thank you so much for sitting with me and my broken heart. And I'm just grateful for all of you. I'm grateful to have a friend who I had so much time with and spent for so many years together. And yeah, so take your grief with you in your practice, and take your pain, and take your hurts, and take your bad ideas about reality, and just hold that up to the great sage, the great wisdom, spirit that is in the deepest part of us. And then that began to, and pretty much it's everywhere. In a Gospel of Thomas, this forgotten, lost gospel for 2,000 years, they found in Egypt in 1945. And in one verse, and I'm paraphrasing, Jesus says, if you're looking for me, and he's speaking not as the Son of God, not as the Messiah, but as the enlightened state of consciousness. What it is non-dual, when you realize that there is only God and art that sort of experience. So he says, if you lift up a rock, I'm there. If you cut a log, I'm there. And he says, the kingdom of God is within you, as in the old gospels, but this one he says, and it is without you. There just ain't no getting away from it. If we just look with our eyes and hearts open, we can see it, and it changes everything. Things are never the same. So with that said, thank you so much. Well, once more, thank you for participating in this this group prayer, this group meditation. It's very important and very necessary, and we have to bring our hearts and minds together, because together we are more than we're just doing our thing individually, which is also important. So anyway, see you next time, God willing. And again, thank you with great love and great respect from myself and the whole WeAwake, I Awake team.